Bill, how unique is a week when you have a guy who's never started an NFL game before on the road? Just in terms of game planning, compared to veteran quarterbacks. Just any kind of wrinkles or things that are different when it's somebody like Justin.
Oh, yes. The answer is yes. Things are different. We went through some quarterback change here last year too. Some of it is the same, and that you try from all the accumulated reps of spring and training camp and preseason games to take that information in of what you think best fits that player. Obviously, as you mentioned, the first regular season start makes it a little bit different, but he's played in big games before. I think you all have seen him enough to. I think you would probably bet that he's going to handle it just fine.
Bill, what was he like? You guys, this is the first time you've had some film to look at with him. I mean, other than the 5 plays in week 1, but a substantial amount of film to look at with him after the game, kind of go over those corrections. What was Justin like in those meetings and handling all that?
No different than he is at practice. I think one of the things that's been impressive about him from the beginning is that he's willing to be coached. Really wants well, everyone wants to be great, right? But willing to do what it takes, and part of that is being coached and working together with the coaches. And the great thing is the dynamic of the room is still fantastic, in that you got 3 quarterbacks in there who all communicate. They communicate great with Coach Flip. They communicate with the head coach. I mean, they communicate with each other. So I think they're blessed. It's really a fun room to be in. It is, and that part hasn't changed. So I think I don't want to speak for Justin, but I would guess that he'd tell you that those guys are helping him.
Bill, as you come up with a game plan this week, how do you walk the line or the balance between doing what you guys have been doing all year offensively, but also fine-tuning things to Justin's strengths?
That's a great question, and that is what we're doing, is walking the line, balancing. I think you add in, right, so now you add in, we talked about it last week, how do you develop a game plan? Part of it is what do you do well, part of it is what hurts the team, what their weaknesses are that you want to attack, and part of it is the matchups. Now you add in another layer of changing that who's starting at that position. And so it does add more layers, and we do have decisions to make. But that's our job.
And Matt has said a couple of times that you want to make sure that the playbook is manageable for the guys, so we can play fast. There's adjustments so we can play fast. Does that complicate matters?
Well, the easy answer is to say, well, just shrink it down. Well, he's also proven over time that he can handle a pretty good amount. So if you go to the point where, well, because we have a new starter at this position and he's a rookie, let's shrink it down. If you go too small, you don't have enough bullets in your belt to win the game. So I think we're looking for the right amount, and that doesn't always mean shrink. It just means what's the right amount so that we have the weapons, because none of us know how the game's going to go. So we have to have stuff if we're up by a lot, if it's a close game, if we're down by a lot, make sure you have enough on the sheet. So yeah, it causes a lot of questions to come up, but that's what we do.
Well, with regard to that, Justin is an inexperienced quarterback, but from the Browns' point of view, he's an unknown. How much does this give you an opportunity to use the element of surprise and present things that they have not seen?
It's the old, well, what do you know? Do we know what you know? You have to assume that they're watching all of his plays, right, from the preseason, and
Right.
using that to evaluate what he is, because I'm sure they're smart coaches. So how much do you play off what you are, what you've been in games, in the 2 games so far, and how much do you take that into account? So I think that adds layers to it, but I think it's harder for them than it is for us, because we get to decide what plays we pick to put in the plan, and they've got to figure it out.
That's what I mean. With such a talented quarterback, is that an opportunity? Do you see that as an opportunity?
I think so. Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. I wouldn't have used that word, but the way you did, I say, yeah, that's true.
How would you
I realize
assess their defense, especially the pass rush of the Browns?
I think they've got physically talented guys, long guys. They've got guys who are intense. Even some of their backups, we've played in the past, are guys who have high motor and bring it hard. I think when you watch I mean, we all know who these defensive ends are, and we faced them over the years, and you make an unbelievable highlight tape of this defensive front. So I think if you had to rank all the issues, and I think we've done a good job evaluating who they are. They've also made, I think, good changes in the secondary, but I think you'd probably have to start it up front, with how they play and how they can disrupt at the ends, with those defensive ends first and then inside. And, you're going to have to block them, run and pass. So that's I would say that's probably job number one, looking at this team specifically.
I realize that you don't want to go too deep into the scheme here, but just how much of an asset is Justin's mobility and that dual threat? And do you prioritize that when kind of building out the game plan?
Well, I think we've proven in the first two games that even as Andy was healthy, that Justin was going to be used, and that's part of what he can do. I think he's also proven that he can do both, stand in the pocket and make throws. I'm picturing a third down where he did to Darnell last week. And then if he doesn't feel good about the throw, he also has a chance to make a play running. So whether it's a designed run, and I'm not going to, like you said, scheme-wise, I'm only talking about things we've shown on game tape, whether it's a designed read or run for him, or whether it's his ability to extend plays, I think there are a lot of quarterbacks in the NFL that can do that and have it be part of the package. So I think we've proven that we recognize it, and it's, I guess, on them to decide how that affects their game plan.
Where is his internal clock in terms of processing his reads, then making that decision to run?
It's hard for me to make an overall statement about it. I think you would, just because of the amount of work he's had and where he is in his development, you could pick out plays that you would feel really good about. You could pick out plays that he'd probably say, yeah, I probably could have just waited a little bit more on this one. Or maybe, it's hard when a guy has the ability to go and make good plays. You don't want to stifle it. There's a balance in there. And at the same time, when one of your guys is running open, you want him to hit him because he can, the way he throws. So that's going to be his development when you're a talented runner at quarterback. And that will always be part of his game, is just finding that balance. I think it's probably fared well for him to this point in his career, right? How he's handled it through college, and he'll keep figuring it out.
So when the defense plays the way they did last week, and they forcing the turnovers, and they give you extra possessions, good field position, you would like to win that game by more than 3 points. When you review the tape, what were some of the things that you thought, either situationally or particular plays, that prevented that from being a 20-point victory?
Well, I think probably, to answer that question, the most disappointing theme would be when we got the ball in good field position, we didn't score touchdowns. We were I think 1 for 3 in the red zone, right? We were 2 for 3 the week before. So to not score touchdowns when we got in those spots was the most disappointing. So we dealt with it when we reviewed the tape with the offense. Just Coach literally talked about here's what the drives look like, and here were the issues, whether it be penalties, whether it be poor execution, whether I think Coach Nagy does a great job of being honest with them too. Of hey, maybe this wasn't the best situation, but we just went down the whole list. But the big theme, to answer your question, would be not taking advantage. I mean, the momentum. I felt like the momentum, you could feel it in the stadium. It was great to have the crowd. It really was. And even in the booth, you could feel it when the defense started playing like they were playing. And so even though it will be in Cleveland this week, if we get that momentum on the field again, our job is to take advantage of it and keep it going.
Bill, we've talked to you and Matt for months now about Justin's composure and about how it doesn't seem too big for him. I know kind of psychologically that's probably very reassuring for you, but from a practical matter, having somebody who doesn't appear to get nervous or flinch, how much does that make game prep easier? Does that make conversations with him on the sideline easier? Are there things about that portend toward success?
I think there's nothing wrong with being excited and and showing positive emotion with your team, but no one wants to see knees shaking. That would be more. So it's one of those things where when it's not a problem, you're good and you can move forward. When it's a problem, it's a problem, and it hasn't been a problem with Justin. I mean, he's handled good and bad, and I'm not on the sideline with him, so I can't see the face, but you certainly can see his body language, and the energy he brings, and I think it's only going to get better. No, it's to me, it's hard to go up and down. It's a long season. A lot of things can happen in the games. As you know, NFL games tend to be so close, right? Even in that game, as it felt like we had that growing momentum and we all wish we'd pulled away, the next thing you know, it's starting to become a close game again, right? I mean, that's just how NFL games go. So guys who are way up and down emotionally, they can tip over the edge sometimes and make some bigger errors. I think guys like Justin, who so far have shown to be kind of flatliners and control their emotions and steady, I think in the long haul are going to be more successful.
Did you ever coach anybody who was like outwardly nervous?
Sure. Made me nervous.
Bill, back to his mobility, when you have a quarterback that's as fast as he is, do the rules on zone reads change at all in terms of keeping it? Because it seems like sometimes he probably makes the right decision to hand it off, but you're also like, man, there's a lot of space over there. He could probably beat the guy to the edge.
I think that's part of the game he has to play, knowing who the people are on the edge. Every rep he gets, maybe in a game, and he watches that defender, and maybe he handed it off and thought, now I see how he reacted. If you come in and get if you run it one time, you make a decision and you go. If you run it a couple times in the game, now you have a chance to kind of gather information as you go. Same thing as, let's say you hand the ball off and you run a bootleg after you hand the ball off. Part of what the quarterback does is gather the information. Hey, after I handed it off and ran the bootleg, just take a little, I'm telling that I have the ball, but take a peek. What did it look like? I think I had that edge. I think next time we can do it. So I think it's the same thing. As you play the game, you gather information. I think the great ones, same thing with coverage. You gather the information. I threw the ball to the back in the flat, and man, he broke on it fast. Next time I can probably look there, get him leaning, and go over his head. So I think in the zone read game, it's probably similar.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bill.